which, you know, whatever. I'm just introducing people. It was like the Oscars, like when they introduce people, which really freaked me out when they, I thought they said Kirk Cameron, and then Kirk Douglas walked out, and I was really confused and very afraid. But the first reader that we have tonight is Spencer McNelly. Spencer is the love child of RuPaul, James Franco, Goldie Hawn, and Michael Caine. Spencer's career peaked at the tender age of 9 months after beating Jennifer Tilly in the National Women's Poker Championship, only to have the title stricken from him after the Poker Board of Trustees learned of his transiness. An avid QVC buyer, Spencer spends most of his time trying to achieve a lower resting heart rate than Lance Armstrong by gardening at night. Disappointed that the original cast of Digimon grew up, Spencer became a recluse and retired in that one house that was in a movie where Drew Barrymore wore scarves on her head. Everybody, Spencer McNelly.
Good evening, everybody. Okay. I normally write nonfiction, so I thought I would mix it up and read a piece of fiction for you. I'm not a poet, so I don't think I will bring my poetry and let you sit through that. The point is, I'm going to read an excerpt from a novel I've been working on, and it is about drag queens in the 1950s, because that was illegal. So it's a gay love story. I think. It's still in the writing, so it's just rough. Okay. Okay. It's okay. Okay. I've witnessed the death of my profession. Side note. It is a gay love story. It is through the perspective of, obviously one of them. So it's not both. It's through his perspective. And he's now being interviewed in like the 70s because he was he's participating in the riots. So he's being interviewed for that in the 70s. So this is the 70s, but he'll eventually think back when I was, okay. I've witnessed the death of my profession. They'll never let my kind on television, well, except for today. I'm being interviewed by Mr. Wendell Tapper on his local show here in Chicago. I know he's going to ask why I support the riots. I'm just going to have to tell him. The television set seems like toy food that you give to little girls. It's supposed to have function, but it's fake. The egg-shaped chairs are a tragic shade of orange, the floors a cream-colored sea of dullness, and the panels in the background, with the Wendell Tapper Show written on them, also shine a fluorescent orange. The whole thing is just beastly. Mr. Hartford, a smoky voice says. I turn around to see a balding man in a blue suit. He seems kind, but weary of me, like he'll catch what I have. So glad to have you. I'll show you to the makeup room, but you'll probably take care of yourself from there, won't you? He lets out a hearty laugh, and I smile politely. I'm Frank Carlisle, producer. He takes a few steps forward, so I follow him. I'll get Wendell in here in a few, and tell him that you're here. In the meantime, make yourself comfortable. Showtime is in an hour. You certainly are early, but no harm done, that's fine. I myself like it when you people are early. Yep, no problem at all. He wipes his forehead with his sleeve and opens the backstage door. Men and women are everywhere, hooking up cables to outlets, flipping through papers and crossing out words. Some were cleaning camera lenses, others adjusting light bulbs, but all were trying to prove whose task was more important by shouting it across the room. I catch myself staring at everything, grasping onto my coat. I feel like Norma Desmond sans the big comeback. Instead, I would be lucky to be on the same level as Mr. Carlyle's assistant, whom with fire-red curly hair and black cat-rimmed glasses was a surprisingly young girl. She follows him around like a geriatric patient. He is her IV. Her lips purse as I follow Mr. Carlyle through a maze of backstage. She doesn't take her eyes off me until we reach a room with a shabby door. "Here we are," Mr. Carlyle says. "Makeup is in here, and Wendell will be with you in a bit later. Thank you for being on the show, Mr. Hartford." After a firm but clammy handshake, he's gone. His fire-red, cat-rimmed assistant soon follows. I feel the drafty air of television studio whisk across my cheeks as the door closes. I wish I would have turned down this interview at 40. I was too old for this. I should have just stayed home. The door opens again, and in walks a pretty young man, probably about half my age. When he sees me, he gasps. "Oh, Miss Lee, you're a legend. I couldn't believe they told me you were coming today. I'm sorry. I know you have no idea who I am. I'm just thrilled," he says. Immediately, I think I can tell his whole story. There were so many boys like him when I was his age. "I'm honored, little one," is all he can muster. I wouldn't want to insult you by painting you." His eyes keep darting to the ground and then back up at mine. "Don't be ridiculous, Pollyanna. I'm too old. By all means, paint me." It's not that I'm too old. I just want to feel another person like me. Of course, not in a sexual way. Good heavens, I could be his father. But it's nice to know that you're not the only one. "Oh, really?" He clasps his hands together. "Well then, darling, just sit right here in this chair, and we'll get you painted." The chair is puffy and comfortable, but it has a plastic covering that makes it slick and fake like the rest of the studio. I finally situate myself into a comfortable position and politely begin small talk with the young boy. I find out his name is Theodore, and he's 23. "I've been performing since 19, though," Theodore assured me. Despite knowing the answer, I asked him how he got involved in performing anyway. "Well," he sighs, "I ran away from home when I was 16. It wasn't really running away. I lived here in Chicago my whole life, but one night before I ran away, my family went to a nice restaurant downtown, and when we left to walk back home, I saw a neon pink sign that read, Miss Porky's. I must have been 14 at the time. I hadn't heard that name, Miss Porky's, in 20 years. It's funny how you're jerked back at hearing a single name. I didn't reminisce much. A blond man in a shiny brown suit busts through and booms my name in appreciation. "Welcome, welcome," he says. "I'm Wendell Tapper. It's finally nice to meet you, Mr. Hartford." Wendell speaks with an element of trying too hard. His voice is high, but he tries to force it lower like an old radio announcer. He sounds foolish. I hold out my hand and smile. "Same to you, sir." "Well, let's see. Are there any questions that you don't feel comfortable answering?" His forced smile twitches. "I haven't been comfortable since I was on my mother's tit. Ask me anything." Wendell laughs even heartier than Mr. Carlyle. It's clearly a fake laugh, but it doesn't bother me. "Well then, showtime's in 25 minutes. I'll see you on the set. Nice to have you." He leaves the makeup room. "Isn't he a dear?" Theodore says, taking a brush to my cheeks and dusting my face with powder. "Quite," I say, closing my eyes and huffing. I didn't want to continue to think about my past, but I politely picked up the conversation again. "You were saying about Miss Porky's?" "Oh, well, 2 years later when I was 16, I was skipping school and walked downtown to get some coffee. I didn't realize that across the street was Miss Porky's until I saw a man sashay down the street right into the place. I'd never met anyone that walked like that. I thought I was the only man in the world that walked like that. Well, I paid for my coffee and followed the man into Miss Porky's. It was an old, empty cabaret. Everything was dusty and withered, but something inside me said that I was home." That's all I have tonight.